What's up, Jets fans? Welcome to the latest edition of Jets Latest, where you get the latest on the Jets, Jets. I'm your host, the spitting statistician, Dane Martinez, and today we look at the Jets' plan for edge rusher here at 2025. Quite frankly, over the last few years in the NFL, edge rusher has developed into a complete prime position on the defensive end. Cornerback and edge rusher are truly the two most important positions when you look at how much money they make, when you look at the kind of draft capital that teams invest in it. As we move to a passing league, it becomes about getting pressure on the quarterback and being able to cover in the pass game. The days of kind of that middle linebacker that can stop the run is no longer really a priority. So let's look at what the Jets do here at edge rusher. The first thing is last year we had kind of the Hassan Reddick debacle, if you want to know the truth. I think this is one of the biggest mistakes of the era when Joe Douglas was the GM. I think Joe Douglas did a lot of great things when he was at GM, but the Hassan Reddick kind of misplay was one of the worst. They spent a draft pick trading for Hassan Reddick and then didn't work out a contract with him. And what he held out. He didn't play for the Jets until the very end of the season. He was a $15 million cap hit for him. He only garnered one sack, and he is now a free agent. So he's going to be gone. He clearly doesn't want to be with the Jets. I don't think they're bringing him back. What does that leave on the Jets roster? A team that, remember, with only 41 sacks, was kind of in the middle of the league last year, did get pressure on the quarterback and did do that without blitzing a ton. So they got pressure with their front four. We've already talked about guys like Quinnen Williams on the inside, guys like Clemens and Kinlaw, who are nice players also on the inside, but they need another edge rusher. They do have Will McDonald, who in his second year had 10.5 sacks, which led the team. He is kind of emerging as a pass rusher, but I actually think they need to add another kind of top line edge rusher to kind of round out the defense and add to that. So the question then remains, how are they going to do it, right? Hassan Reddick is not going to be the guy. There's a couple of places we can look. The first, obviously, in April with the draft on the horizon. So the question is, could the Jets draft an edge rusher? We're hearing about a generational talent at edge. His name is Abdul Carter out of Penn State. They are likening him to Micah Parsons, also out of Penn State, right? A guy that can be an edge rusher, but could kind of be that joker that moves all over the field. Thing is, he's not going to be there for the Jets at number 7 overall. Heck, he's probably going to be a top 2 or 3 pick. I personally believe the Cleveland Browns may go ahead and draft him at number 2 overall, especially if they decide to move Myles Garrett. They can kind of just replenish that position with a guy like Abdul Carter. I still, with number 7 overall, I've said it here on Jets Latest time and time again, I believe that if they don't move and they are actually picking in the number 7 pick, I believe they're taking Will Campbell, the offensive lineman out of LSU, to really fortify that offensive line. I think if they trade down, it could be for a guy like Malachi Starks at the safety position. It could be for Tyler Warren, the tight end, also out of Penn State. So where does that leave us? If it's not Abdul Carter, there are some other pass rushers that could be in that area. Guys like James Pierce out of Tennessee, guys like Michael Williams, or even Jelon Walker, both of them from Georgia. Remember, that Georgia defense was absolutely stacked. I'm even talking about Starks at safety from that position. But the thing is, most mocks have those guys going somewhere between picks 10 and 20. So to take one of those edge rushers at number 7 overall could be something of a risk. Remember, the Jets do have other picks, right, in the top 100. They have a high second round pick. They have the Detroit Lions pick from in round 3, which is around 92, I believe. And there are some options there. There could be guys like Landon Jackson out of Arkansas, an edge rusher who is getting some buzz, who could be available for them in that level. There is a guy, you may have heard the name Jack Sawyer from the defending champion Ohio State Buckeyes, right? He could be a guy that's available maybe in the 3rd round. But honestly, I don't know that they are going to go with an edge rusher there. Remember, I think they go on offensive line, and then there are other positions really to address, right? I still think in the secondary, a safety might be a need in the 2nd or 3rd round. You've heard talk about kind of the quarterback position, guys like Quinn Ewers, guy like Jalen Milroe, I continue to mention, and I think they would in fact prioritize those positions if those guys are on the board in rounds 2 and 3. So I'm not sure if the draft is the way they're going to get an edge rusher, at least with one of their picks in the first 3 rounds. Now, listen. Like I said, if they trade down out of 7, they may accumulate more picks and have options. There's also, fourth, fifth round picks that they do have to potentially get depth at that position, but I don't think they're getting the guy opposite Will McDonald with a top 3 round pick. I just don't. I think they're going to address other positions. So, what does that leave? That leaves the free agency route. Now, remember, we've just had kind of guys getting franchise tagged. You saw the Jets just cut Davante Adams, which I told you about in a previous edition of Jets Latest. I told you that I didn't think there was going to be much of a trade market for Davante Adams because the league knew that the Jets would just cut him to save the money on the cap, and that's in fact what they did. They did save a bunch of money, and now the Jets cap, as we go to the beginning of the new league year, stands at just around $34 million, okay? They may still make some more moves, cut some more players, make a deal or something like that to try to get even more money for the salary cap, but right now their $34 million is right in the middle of the league. It is literally 16th in the NFL in terms of how much cap space there is. So there are teams with more money, but there are also teams that still have a lot of work to do. There are about 5 or 6 teams that are still over the cap right now. Houston, Atlanta, Buffalo, the Kansas City Chiefs, Cleveland, and New Orleans are all over the cap. So think about it. They are going to have to cut some guys, make some moves for them to get under the cap for the start of the new league year, which is in just a week on March 12th, right? So I think free agent could be an option. Now, let's see, where could they go? One name that's interesting to me, I just mentioned that the New Orleans Saints are over the cap, right? One name on the New Orleans Saints is Chase Young. You remember Chase Young out of Ohio State? He was, I think, the number 2 overall pick. People thought he was going to be a generational pass rushing stud. He is only 26 years old. He has had some injuries in his NFL career, but he is a dog, okay? He had 5.5 sacks last year. He would be a very intriguing option. He was at $13 million, though. Okay, so if they go ahead and try to get Chase Young on this roster, that is going to be one of these high ticket items and really drain a lot of the cap space that the guys have, that the Jets have. Another option that would be high priced is Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack is a stud, but the problem is he's 34 years old right now. He only had 6 sacks with the Chargers last year. He is aging a little bit. His production has gone down, but that is a brand name, but he carries a high price tag as well. I think Chase Young could be very interesting, but here is another name to consider. And I think this one is sneaky. This one is something to keep an eye on. It is Marcus Davenport. Marcus Davenport is 29 years old. He only played in 2 games last year. He had a triceps injury, okay? He was banged up. In 2021, he was really good. He had 9 sacks. That was when he was with the Saints. He is only commanding right now $6.5 million. So that is a discount from a guy like Chase Young, a discount from a guy like Mack, right? Could maybe fit with the Jets salary-wise and still give the Jets enough room to go out and address other needs, whether it be at O-line, whether it be in the secondary, or what have you. Here is the interesting part with Marcus Davenport. He's only 29 years old, so I like that from a kind of mid-career, he's in his prime kind of perspective. I like the fact that he only played in a few games, is coming back from injury, so his market may not be as high. Here is the other thing. Last year, Marcus Davenport was on the Detroit Lions. So, who is the new head coach for the New York Jets? It's Aaron Glenn. What was he last year? The defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, right? So he has experience with Aaron Glenn. There was a reason before that Aaron Glenn liked Davenport, right? So they have some experience together. Davenport may know what an Aaron Glenn-led defense wants to do. That one could be a fit. So bottom line here, the Hassan Reddick thing didn't work out. We do have Will McDonald on one side. I don't think they're going to spend at least high leverage draft capital in the draft going after an edge rusher. There are some names there, but those are kind of beneath where the Jets are at 7. Could be some options in rounds 2 and 3, maybe some options later on. I think Marcus Davenport is a name to watch as free agency opens next week because of his experience with Aaron Glenn in Detroit, the fact that he does not command the same kind of price tag that maybe a guy like Chase Young or a Khalil Mack would, and because he is, coming off of injury and has experience being a 9-10 sack guy in this league. If you got him on one side, along with Will McDonald, who is developing, about Quinnen Williams and other studs we have in the middle, that can really round out this defensive line, allowing the Jets with guys like Sauce Gardner and others to cover on the back end and continue to have the Jets be one of the top 5 defenses in the NFL. That's what I think the plan is. Lower level draft picks and a guy like Marcus Davenport at the edge position. So that'll about do it for this episode of Jets Latest. But remember, like this video, subscribe to Jets Latest. This way you get an alert every time I go live, giving you the latest on the JETS, Jets. And by the way, tell your Jet fans friends, okay? Especially as we get into free agency, as we get into the draft, you really want to be plugged into everything that Green and White is doing, and you get the best right here from the Spittin' Statistician on the JETS, Jets. Until next time, I'm out of here. Peace.